All right, so we are currently, this is where we're at as of today. It's been, um, yeah, I've been working on this kind of on the side whenever I can. And yeah, I figured I'd give a nice little recap video for those who are watching, you know, how it kind of got here. I think it's important to kind of show this process so that that way, because I know in the past, back in the day, you would see me work on something and then all of a sudden 2 3 weeks later it's like at a completely different stage and there's no like recap. So this is kind of like a quick recap from last video to this one. So yeah, let's just talk about that real quick. So the last time you saw this, I'm just going to hide that, we're still in the sub D modeling stage, and we were, let me just change this here, and we were doing the sub D modeling for the wheel. So that was done. And then I went in and I created this little bolt. This little bolt here. Let me bring up the pure ref because I think that'll be useful. The pure ref. There we go. Yeah, so we did that, right? So we did some more sub D modeling, created this high poly bolt in sub D. And then the next step after that was creating the high poly, like actually getting this as like a nice one piece, giving this like welded kind of look. Because right now, everything that I've done so far has been just like um, mashing it in, like even this piece here, right? Like if you just go to the faces, I'm just crashing it through. So giving it more of a, this piece was like casted together. And to do that, I will show you how I did that in Zbrush. So I did that in Zbrush. Okay, so here's Zbrush. Here, let me just go to new document. Gonna hide this. Going to, I guess I didn't save the tool. I should have saved the tool. So that is my fault. Yep, that's a big blunder. Did I not save the tool? Yeah, this is what happens when you haven't done this in a while. Oh, no, here we go. I did save the tool. So here we go. Take a little quick look here. So here was the tool, right? And then I went in, I did the live boolean, and then I made a brand, did the live boolean. It creates a brand new mesh. The mesh, then I did a polish on it, which gives you this nice kind of rounded look. Once I finally went through that process, imported it out, and you now see something like this. And yes, it looks extremely messy, but at a distance, it looks like this nice welded on piece, right? And then this is me exploding out the acid as well so that it bakes nicely. And then putting in the sub D, like applying the sub D, and then depending on how much smoothness I wanted, it was either division 2 or division 1. So I did all that, got my bolts, and then, like I said, I exploded it, right? Had a low and a high, right? Make sure that everything matched. The naming conventions, underscore high and then underscore low, making sure everything matched. And then after that, let me load up Painter. Okay, actually before that, then I did what I like to do at that stage when I do the high and the low and I have the exploded polys here. And again, to explode it, I just did something very simple. I would just move things, so like -10. This one, it was, I just kept there, like I didn't move it at all. The wheel, oh, sorry, that's the high poly wheel. The wheel here, I just moved it 10 to the z-axis, on the z-axis, just so that it's nice and easy for me to remember. And then I can just, afterwards, I can create like a more unexploded version of this, or I can just easily just go 0, and then it reconstructs the skateboard. So at that stage, after I finish renaming everything, making sure that everything looks good, I do a test. I do an auto UV on the low poly. Right, so I do an auto UV, and I'll show you that right here. Save layouts, perspective UV editor. So I just do, I do the simple, make sure everything's at the same pixel density. Let me quickly turn off the high poly. Make sure everything's at the same pixel density. And then I do an auto UV, because what's important is just making sure that the bakes are working. And then this is the bake. So here's the bake. And here you can quickly see where the issues start to come in, right? Like the bolt is, it's losing some of its bake, its quality. There's some pixelation going on over there, right? Not that anyone's really gonna notice those things, but if you want to clean it up, you know which areas are having issues, and if areas need more geometry, because the bake didn't turn out well. So like all of this, right? Like you can see that, it did a pretty decent job at baking some of this, because the low poly is quite low poly, but it did a good job at baking what we need. And then even for like here, we can decide, like for the low poly, do we want a little bit more smoothness coming here, right? Because even the skateboard is looking quite low poly. So these are areas now that I can just like quickly like make notes of, to be like, let me just kind of show this process where I can start making notes, where I can be like, add more polys, less faceting, right? So I can start to kind of nitpick a little bit of this stuff, and then I'll throw that into, oh, where's my mural? To my mural board. Right, I can just throw that. So I already said I was going to start UVing the skateboard, but there's other things that I feel like I need to kind of address. So like, just going to take a screenshot here and just be like, okay, there's some baking issues happening here. And it could just be the UVs, because again, I did just auto UV these. So it could be that. Let's say pixelated, low res bakes, or I could say like artifacting or something. Artifacts, bakes, right? And then I'll just store a bunch of these into my mural to kind of take a look at. And then I'm going to start UVing. That's kind of the next step, is like going back and doing a proper UVs, because even this auto UV here kind of gives me a good sense of, okay, there's still this big area here on my UV space that I could be utilizing. So there are two things that I can do here, right? Knowing that information, I can potentially have every single wheel be a different wheel, right? To utilize the UV space. I think if this was a like a real game situation, there would there potentially would be considerations of like, okay, the top part and the bottom part would actually be one texture sheet, um, cut in half here. So this would be like a 1 by 2, and that would be like the skateboards, the top, the top deck, and then the bottom of the deck, right? So that would be actually, and then like if you ever was to go buy like transactions or a different board, you can just like swap like this texture that's only going to be that, and then this part of the texture sheet potentially would have only be like half of that. So let's say this is a 1024 by 1024. This would only be like a like a five like a 512. Like the wheels and the trucks and stuff would only be 512, and you'd fit that all in there. So potentially I might even try that myself to see if that would work, splitting these two out to be its own separate thing. And yeah, I'll report back if I end up going that route. And yeah, hopefully that's a little bit insightful on kind of the process so far. And yeah, I'll be doing more of these videos. I haven't had too much time just privately to just record myself working on this stuff, but I want to continue progress on my personal projects. So I've just been working on the side quietly, but I think doing these recap videos might be useful for those who are trying to figure out and understand the process. All right, thank you.